Oh, never of accuse. I'm not as dumb as you. Hey there. I really don't know how to start this video. I don't have any opening ramblings. I could do the cheap YouTuber thing like, Gabby, where do I start? But the fact of the matter is that you may have noticed, while all of this hullabaloo around Gabby Hanna acting really erratic online and being outright mean and horrible in IG stories and TikToks and all that, as soon as that seemed to start to die down, larger creators started to notice behaviors from around this time last year. Namely things like the false SA allegation that was made against Jen Dent, the hate mob that was sent to me around that time during a 1.5 hour live stream that Gabby Hanna made about me on her channel, as well as kind of how Gabby Hanna has interacted with her fans using intimidation, as well as control over her hardcore fans in order to get them to behave in, let's just say, some unsavory ways. And when the hate mob happened to me, some friends and I really started to collect a lot of screenshots that displayed this behavior in order to make a case against Patreon or any platform that would notice what was going on and take action against Gabby Hanna. I will say that it got to the point where this mission was starting to consume our lives. And I think more importantly, a lot of us were talking about this online and just felt unheard, which is why it's so important that people are talking about it now. It's kind of this bittersweet experience where you finally feel validated for the hardships you went through at the hands of this person. But at the same time, there's this frustration that says, I've been screaming about this for the past year and nobody's noticed. I am grateful to the channels, the creators, the people with platforms out there that have paid attention to what's gone on, to those of us who kind of went unnoticed at that time. But because I am sitting on these screenshots that we collected and now the internet is starting to talk about the behavior that happened at that time, I would really like to kind of go through those screenshots, what we collected, why we collected it, and kind of give you guys some context around what was happening so you get a better idea of what was going on around that time between Gabby and her fans, but really what hasn't stopped, because this has been ongoing ever since and it will continue to go on for some time. First, I do want to give a narrative around the false allegation against Jen Dent, the false child SA allegation that was made by these fans against Jen Dent, and kind of how that came to be, what happened around it, how Gabby got involved, etc. I'd like to kind of lay that out to the best of my knowledge, and I'll go back and try to find whatever screenshots I can to support what I am sharing with you. I'll also do my best, even though I feel like I've done this a bunch of times, but maybe I'm getting better at doing it more briefly each time, but I'll do my best to give you a brief synopsis of what happened between me and Gabby in a very short time that caused all of this to happen, before I start talking about some screenshots that speak specifically to my situation with her, and specifically tweets made by Gabby, by Peyton, and countless tweets made by Creepshow Art. And perhaps you can understand by the end of this video why I'm not a big fan of Creepshow Art. So, if you're seeing this now, that means that this story took so long for me to tell that this is being broken up into 2 parts, but at this point you probably already know that by the title. Just wanted to throw that in here though. Now, regarding the child SA allegations made against Jen Dent. It should be noted that Gabby Hanna fans stands specifically. I try to make the distinction when I'm talking about Gabby Hanna's like hardcore fans that seem to be detached from reality and the law and things that most of us are cognizant of in our day-to-day lives. But these stans have been at war with Jen Dent for who knows how long, well before I knew who any of these people were. But At the beginning of the summer last year, I do remember there was a situation where these stans were just trying to get at Jen Dent in any way possible. One thing they tried to do, I believe, was either call an employer of hers or Jen Dent's licensing board, as she is a registered nurse. And at this time, we were very much in a global pandemic, and I realize, of course, we still are, but this was at the very beginning of all of that. Jen was selling her house. Jen was moving to another state. She was looking for a job in the midst of COVID as a nurse, and these stans wanted to get her license revoked based on nothing that I know of. Obviously, they weren't successful. Jen has a great job and a home that she's in love with and seems very happy where she is. So thank God for that. But I guess when that didn't work out, somebody thought that they would throw out just some random allegation. And I have every right to say that this is a baseless and false allegation when there is no victim to come forward. There's no evidence to come forward. There's nothing to support this allegation. But there was a man whose name I grapple with whether or not I should share, but I will just say that I looked into this person's social media profiles and I found him to be, in my opinion, and many people can back me up on this, he was a very disturbed man. There were photos of lynchings and other really just disturbing content on this guy's social media platforms. He also is a man in his 30s, very similar in age to me. And kind of out of nowhere, this account that, as far as I know, wasn't a Gabby Stan account, but was kind of chummy with the stans. Oh my God. Trigger warning. I've already started talking about this. I'm so sorry. I'm the worst about this. I am going to be talking about things like SA, a potential mention of self-harm, bullying, harassment, disturbing language involved in this bullying and harassment, eating disorders. There's a lot of sensitive content in this story. If that's difficult for you, please feel free to skip this video. I'm sure that you'll get the gist of it through social media or some other means, or hopefully from other channels covering these same stories. But at that time, this man started a rumor that Jen Dent SA'd his friend, who was a little girl. This man is in Australia. I should note. This person is halfway around the world, claiming that he has a child, a little girl, that is a friend of his that was SA'd by Jen Dent. To this day, nobody knows who that child is. Nobody has heard from that child. Nobody has filed any police reports. Nobody has done anything to try to help this child because, in my opinion, this child does not exist. However, some of Gabby Hanna's biggest fans, most noticed fans, decided that it would be in their best interest to perpetuate this rumor because, in their opinion, Jen Dent was throwing around accusations about Gabby and therefore they could too. Now, at this point, I am talking about one fan in particular, and I am going to talk about this fan and relating to relapse into self-harm and just some really unfortunate things. And at this point, I am in no way going to be guilt-tripped for talking about this. This stuff is really important, and it's impossible to divorce any of these details from the story itself. So if you don't like that I'm talking about this, say or do what you will, but I'm not going to feel guilty for it. So this fan I'm going to call Teacher's Pet just because she seemed to be, I think I described her as kind of a sweetheart among the fandom and one that Gabby has interacted with a lot. This fan retweeted the false allegation. And I've said this before in videos, so I know that I'm getting to the point where I'm able to quote it almost verbatim, but just know that I'm paraphrasing a little bit. I'm surely will put a screenshot on the screen. But this person retweeted this false allegation saying that if Jen can throw around accusations, we can too. Plus, if it's true, it should spread like wildfire. And there's a note that I have made in previous videos, and I want to make it again here. I find it very bothersome that the reason this person retweeted this allegation was not in the interest of any potential victim. It was, quote unquote, to throw around accusations. And the fact that it could potentially be true was an afterthought, or as this fan put it, a plus if it's true. So they did not have any reason to believe that it was true, and of course nobody really looked into it. I asked this fan, as well as somebody else on Twitter who also retweeted this allegation, I asked if they would vouch for the person who started this rumor, is what it is. I'm just going to call it that. At this point, people were starting to file certain reports with police departments and other government agencies. And as I was filing my own, I asked if these fans would vouch for the person that they're retweeting. What I didn't know, and I was recently told, that the teacher's pet fan claimed to have been in contact with this alleged victim. Yet again, nobody came forward to speak for this victim. No police reports were filed. No victim was named. No parents were reached out to. There was nothing there. But this person did go so far as to say that they were talking to this alleged victim, if who I spoke to was correct in that. So I didn't realize that was going on. So it's an added layer that I wasn't aware of. But in the end, teacher's pet, as well as this other fan that I asked, hey, do you vouch for this guy, ended up saying that they don't. And I did clarify, like, hey, I'm just trying to stay out of the details. I don't think you're going to get in trouble for any of this. I mean, I really think it falls on the guy who started this, but I need to know if you vouch for this person. At which point somebody else came in and essentially said, oh, no, actually, she can get in trouble for this. There are laws against perpetuating false allegations, particularly through retweet. So she could get in trouble. This was also the fan that supposedly somebody reached out to her family member to let them know what was going on. I still don't know who did that. I don't necessarily believe that that was a lie. And I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that. But yes, all of this happened around this false allegation against Jen Dent, and this fan who seriously wanted to go hard to get at Jen Dent, admittedly not willing to vouch for the source of this rumor. She was questioned as to how valid her source was, and she was told that initially that she probably wouldn't get in trouble, and then she was told that she might get in trouble for this. And that is the extent of my interaction with this fan as far as I know, and kind of what I know of this allegation. It never really ended, and that's the really sad part for Jen Dent, is that this is kind of just something that, this rumor that lives on the internet that is not going to go away, even though hopefully most people at this point have picked up on the fact that it is a false allegation. However, last year when Gabby Hanna came back from her 6-week break from social media, she made a video in which she referred to anybody who doesn't like her. So, of course, her high school bullies, and surely me and anybody that was kind of on this side of those arguments. She referred to us all as her stalkers and haters, and continually told her fans, in any instance where she tried to tell her fans not to engage, it was because people like us were dangerous. Not because her fans were misbehaving, but because we were dangerous. And we'll get to the way her fans were behaving some more in a little bit. But what I found to be particularly disparaging was how Gabby talked about this teacher's pet fan, and how her stalkers and haters drove this fan to relapse on, I think I said in a video, either on self-harm or an ED or both, or I don't know, but some sort of relapse, and subsequently to rehab, which may or may not have been true, because after Gabby said that, then I saw a GoFundMe to try to get her to rehab. I hope that that fan has found recovery again, but nobody is responsible for that happening except for that fan, particularly because nobody was harassing that fan. Nobody was unjustly treating that fan. She simply was told that she could get in trouble for these lies that she was telling and perpetuating. And what's even more sad is that around this time, Gabby Hanna and Jessie Smiles were communicating about some matters that they had to work out, and just kind of out of nowhere, Gabby asked something like, oh, but Jen R-worded a little girl, did you hear? To which Jessie said something like, no, she did not, Gabby. What are you even talking about? Stop. And then Gabby said, oh, that's dark. But have you seen the evidence? It's dark. And I find that to be really disturbing that Gabbie Hanna would claim to have evidence that Jen Dent had essayed a little girl, but has done nothing with that evidence. So that just all kind of tells you how much of a crock of shit that was. So that's what I know of the whole essay allegation thing. Now I want to get into some things that have surfaced from last summer that some larger channels have picked up on, and I would like to give a little more context around them as far as I know and expand upon those things. I've got my computer here. And of course, I will be sharing these screenshots on the screen. But one thing you may have seen was some messages that Gabbie Hanna left some fans or ex-fans in a Discord server. I think it's really confusing at first to understand the context of this all, but as far as I understand, there was a private server that was created for ex-fans of Gabbie Hanna, essentially to go and speak and air out their frustrations privately. And somebody gave Gabbie Hanna an invite to that server, and so she entered that server and proceeded to attempt to intimidate these fans or ex-fans, threatening them with a lawsuit. She says in the server, hey guys, I just wanted to give you a heads up about the lawsuit. For those under 18, your parents will be contacted. Somebody did note an adult scaring people. Later on in the conversation, she says, okay, back to why I got here in the first place. And somebody said to sue us. And she said, I'm not suing anyone. Obviously, that would be insane. And to me, this is a perfect depiction of something I've pointed out before about Gabbie Hanna, is that she's very careful about her verbiage so as not to get herself in trouble. So she'll be very vague enough to get her point across, vague enough to scare, intimidate, terrorize people, but also vague enough to where she's not directly incriminating herself. So somebody else, another channel pointed that out, that she doesn't say, hey guys, just want to give you a heads up, I'm suing you. She says, hey guys, I want to give you a heads up about the lawsuit. So there were a lot of people in this server that were terrified over the situation. We also saw a screenshot where Gabby is in a group chat with a couple of, as far as I know, kind of top tier patrons. She says, help me, please. And then she shares a tweet from one of the ex-fans, who was an ex-mod, in fact. And the ex-fan says, she threatened us for simply posting my doc, outlining my experiences in her server. We did not attack her or her server members. And we certainly did not slander her because everything we said was true. It's up to you to know what to believe. I will not give you hate for it. Heart. And to that, Gabby says, it's so wrong. And one of the fans, who, by the way, is fan teacher's pet, said, on it. Somebody else said, very wrong indeed. Somebody else said, very wrong, got you. So to give some kind of context around how Gabby was interacting with her mods, her ex-mods, her patrons, etc., somebody did ask an ex-fan, does she encourage spying on others? Like, Leash had one in her Patreon, which is true. One of Gabbie Hanna's patrons or fans did pay for my Patreon so that she could go in and record a live stream to offer to Gabby and Peyton. I've noted, by the way, to the public that Gabby fans, anybody's welcome to join my Patreon. It's a paid membership. You're welcome to join. However, what we say privately stays private, and I'm not going to feel guilty for anything that I say private. So if you leak that, then you're a shitbag. And I believe that some of the information that I'm sharing is leaked from Gabby's Patreon as well. So it's gone both ways. But yes, we had somebody in my Patreon, which this person brought up in a conversation with the ex-fan. The ex-fan said she only really asks for it from her $100 tier fans, and they would do it on their own without Gabby asking. And the other person says, so she would never straight up ask. And the ex-fan says, correct, because then it could be traced back to her. She hints at it, but she never outright says it. And in another conversation with another ex-fan, somebody asked, was she rude to you guys? And this ex-fan said, in our private server or in the Discord and Twitter group chat and Marco Polo, with a big question mark. And then says, and that blank girl tried to say that we were being malicious in our private server that literally didn't have anything to do with Gabby until that Google Doc got shared and someone added Gabby into the server. Then she threatened us with a lawsuit and then took it back and was like, oh, I'd never sue you. That's ridiculous. But there's literal proof of both. Going back to the other ex-fan, she did say, after Gabby started gaslighting and manipulating us in mod chat on her server, I started to realize how messed up it was and stopped being her fan. I stayed in her server because I wanted to make it a better place for other people, but still, a friend leaked our private messages to her, and then she leaked them even further, and I got kicked from the server. Someone asked, what about repercussions for leaving the group? Does she encourage the shunning of them, or is that just a thing they do on their own? By the way, I'm not sure who was asking these ex-fans these questions. I just got these screenshots, but for whatever that's worth. And this ex-fan says, it depends on why the person leaves. If a person leaves just because they grew out of her content, she doesn't really do anything. But in my case and somebody else's case, she sometimes encourages people to defend her against quote-unquote lies that are being told. But otherwise, she unfollows them, and that shows people they should be shunned. When Gabby unfollows someone, it's her way of telling her fandom, we no longer like this person. They said, even a drama channel came to my threads and attacked me and called me a brat and a kid just trying to get revenge because I felt I didn't get attention. And the other person asks, which drama channel? To which this person said, Creep Show? Put a pin in that, friends. This ex-fan says, one of my friends DM'd her, emailed her, and posted on her community page on Patreon a year ago. She paid for Gabby's $500 tier, but didn't get her benefits. Finally, she was fed up and tweeted about it, and Gabby saw it and DM'd her and made her feel guilty for not receiving her benefits. Gabby manipulated her into feeling guilty and she deleted her tweet. And from then on, Gabby just didn't like this girl. And that girl became the fandom go-to when it came to throwing someone under the bus. She was constantly blamed for shit she didn't do because they knew Gabby already didn't like her. So here we're starting to see people are essentially accusing Gabby of weaponizing her fan base, which I wouldn't leave you hanging on just that information alone provided by these fans, these ex-fans. But I do have plenty of screenshots that show Gabby Hanna's fans acting as if they are her army and in fact calling themselves her army. In this Patreon post, Gabby says, I feel like free. I got my voice back. I'm not stopping until this is right. You guys, my army. You never fail to save me, to support me. That was June 16th, 2 days before my hate mob, oh god. In another Patreon post on June 13th of last year, Gabby says, please go spam my last tweets about YouTube and their contribution to cancel culture. Like them, respond to them, tag them in the comments, let them know the outrage that I know you feel. Maybe they'll listen, because they never listened to me. Thank you. Peach out. This is a super quick reminder to like this video and subscribe to my channel if that's something you want to do. If that's not something you want to do, just don't. I'll shut up and start talking now. So this is not the first or last time that we'll see Gabby overtly telling people to spam, which, Gabby, is a form of harassment. Here I have some screenshots of Gabby and Peyton just being straight up gems. There's a tweet from Peyton on June 23rd saying, yo, taking fans out to lunch to gossip is so fucking weird. In which we can only assume he's talking about Jessie Smiles, taking a fan out to lunch. This was also around the time I believe that Gabby called Jessie a predator. Meanwhile, Peyton is following Gabby's underage fans on social media, starting his own Patreon too, and Gabby is requiring video evidence of who a child is that she was speaking to, as well as sending him IP trackers to like identify his location. And just, you want to talk about what's fucking weird, Peyton? That stuff, that's weird. But moving on. Fans acting as Gabby's army. So here we see a fan saying, everyone report this video. And it is Dustin Daly's video called You Are Not Special. To my knowledge, there was no reason for this video to be reported, but this is how the fans do. And in this tweet, what's interesting is we can see where Gabby Hanna said, I think this tweet might have been deleted by now, but I'm not sure. But Gabby linked the video by Dustin Daly and said, wow, playing the victim card, so defensive, so impulsive, can't take accountability for your actions, can't admit you're wrong. Look at these crocodile tears. Oh wait, that's me, right? Good God. And in response to that tweet, Peyton says, is he crying? Somebody did say, he's crying because his sister died. What the fuck, man? Somebody else said, looks like it. Peyton says, dang. And then in a response to that, Peyton tags Dustin and says, I hope it wasn't because I considered tagging him in that clown meme, which was like Peyton's thing that summer. He would use the meme of the clown putting on makeup and just tag people, and he thought he was so hilarious for doing that. And to be fair, Gabby gassed up the shit out of Peyton for using that meme. She talked about it on her podcast, which I'm a massive fan because I used to watch. That was sarcasm. But yeah, that was Peyton's thing apparently last summer, was using that meme, and anybody that he didn't like, he would just tag them in that clown meme and like really thought he was sticking it to people. And even here, he didn't even say he tagged Dustin in that meme. He just considered tagging him, and somehow that's why Dustin is crying, even though they were told, and it was the information was out there that Dustin was crying because he had lost his sister like a month prior. So that's sick. That actually like really strikes a chord with me because I lost a sibling about 4.5 years ago. So I can't imagine how much I would just rage on people if they tried to come for my dead sibling a month after it happened. My God. Here we see another fan attacking Dustin Daly, posting this photo and saying, hey guys, I found Dustin Daly's nudes. Another fan saying, neither are you or your dead sister you guilt trip people with into caring about. Ugh. The fan from before, claiming to have Dustin Daly's nudes, did tell somebody, I'll fist your ain't you F word. Then at this point, we start to see the fans going after friends of Jessie Smiles. So in a few tweets, I see Lily Marston is being attacked. In one tweet reply, she says, so it doesn't apply to her. The point I'm making is she's a hypocrite that is constantly deflecting. One of the fans said, you sound so dumb, you stewed bitch. Then in another tweet, the same fan says, at Lily Marston, you are a piece of shit trying to gain fame off Gabby. I hope Gabby sue the shit out of you. Tagged Gabby Hanna. In another tweet, he says, oh, never of accuse. I'm not as dumb as you. I just don't support bully. I never said cancel someone that wasn't even popping to begin with. Oh, and this same fan went after Megan Ranks, who is also a fan of Jessie Smiles. This person said, Megan Ranks, you sound so dumb. Fame-hungry people. At Gabby Hanna, leave these fat bitches alone and make that coin they can only dream of. Here's another A+ stab at Megan Ranks. Makes no sense. All it is incriminating in my opinion, but okay, here we go. At Megan Ranks, you act like you've never been friends with a rapist. But guess what, sweetie? You probably know one as I type this, and no one knows it because the girl didn't report it. Grow the fuck up. Stop acting like a preteen obsessed with drama. This is one of the most baseless tweets that I've seen out of them. Jessie did report it. Curtis did admit to that crime. All of this happened before Gabby supported him and called Jessie a liar. So yep, you just admitted to that on behalf of Gabby Hanna. So thank you to you, fan that I will not name. Some more Gabby Hanns referring to themselves as an army. On a Twitter post, this one user says, Twitter, use hashtag Gabby Hanna Army and put it in your bio to show support. BBS, let's go. BBs? BBs, let's go. So then we see that started to happen on this one user's profile. You see in their bio, hashtag Gabby Hanna Army. And not only that, but in their pinned tweet, they say, we protect, we attack. But most importantly, we got Gabby Hanna back. Hashtag Gabby Hanna Army. This is so embarrassing, you guys. Like, for you. This is really embarrassing for you. Ugh. I'm like embarrassed for when you're in your 30s and look back on this behavior. But at the same time, I like hope and pray by the time you're in your 30s, you recognize that this behavior is sick. Anyway, moving on. Somebody else said, this fandom will be so nice, but we can and will fight you if you mess with us, LMFAO. They love fighting. Somebody said, facts. Somebody else said, facts. Now, this screenshot is interesting because I don't remember how many of you remember, but there was this whole controversy around Gabby Hanna stealing, I don't know which word is appropriate, but taking in this cat that had a very distinct appearance. I believe it was missing an eye. Gabby took in this cat, was taking care of this cat, and was kind of claiming this cat to be her own. And there was somebody online who was looking for their cat and claimed that this was their cat and wanted the cat back. And I would love to look into like what actually happened in that scenario, because obviously Gabby doesn't have that cat anymore. She has her own cats that she got by legitimate means, we assume. But at this time, I'm assuming that person whose cat this was, or who she claimed, this was her cat, said, just stop. I work directly with my local shelter, and when your pet is chipped and scanned, that legally binds it to you. We're waiting for exact location, and so will go get him. To which one of the most relentless stands this is the first stand I ever had to block because they continued to say really just the stupidest shit that didn't make sense. But anyway, this person said, no, we won't stop. You're lying and trying to drag someone down. Guess what? We will keep doing this until you stop. They love to let people know that they are relentless. And they are. Like I said, my shit with her was a year ago almost. And the harassment is still ongoing. Another fan saying, Gabby's not telling y'all to attack her, but I am. So attack. Attack. Fight. Army. War. This shit is weird as hell. And even worse so, we start to see them use even more disturbing language. In one tweet, this person simply says, die. In another tweet, one of the better known fans, I think, I'm familiar with this person's name, they showed a screenshot of a Nick Snyder tweet and kind of made fun of what he was saying or whatever. But what's more important is that the reply to that tweet was a Gabby fan saying, yes, I hope this man becomes bankrupt and then kills himself. And that same fan said in another tweet, honestly, kill yourself, LMAO. Gabby is the best and you can never bring her down. I would argue that that's not true. So that kind of shows a bit of Gabby Hanna's fandom being, in my opinion, weaponized. It's a very well-known fact that Gabby Hanna signals to her fans and then they go fight on her behalf. It's also very well known that Gabby does not overtly tell her fans not to behave in these ways. She claims that she's told her fans not to, but the only evidence we've seen of that, like I said, was her really just trying to claim that we're the dangerous ones and for their own benefit, don't engage, instead of outright saying, hey, the way you guys are behaving is not something I approve of, cut it out. She has not said that yet. If I'm wrong, correct me. I would love to see it, but it hasn't happened. And here is where it does start to get a little more sensitive. I want to be very clear that I'm aware these topics are very sensitive and that there are a lot of people suffering in these situations. But one thing that was happening around this time that I was very concerned about is that it looked to me that Gabby Hanna was displaying a lot of behaviors that are consistent with somebody that is actively in their ED. Of course, I can only go by these things that I have here that I can share with you. Only Gabby knows to what extent that is true. But there were a lot of strange live streams that she was doing for her patrons. And I don't remember if I saw a clip that was leaked from the live stream or if this was public, but I do remember her saying that she hadn't eaten any more than 900 calories in 5 days, if I'm not mistaken. It was some insanely low number of calories to eat in almost a week. There was another stream that I didn't see, but I heard about from an ex-fan where supposedly she was just simply eating watermelon and crying on camera. And an ex-fan told me, so take this for what that's worth. This ex-fan said that when Gabby does this, eating watermelon, especially after not eating for a long time and just kind of crying on camera, that kind of signals to her fans that she is in her ED. I don't know how much that's true. I want to make that clear. But after that live stream of Gabby eating watermelon and crying for however long, these fans were just tweeting about how that was such a beautiful experience. It was so wonderful. One of the best nights of their lives, like things like that. It was very odd. But then shortly thereafter, Gabbie Hanna posted a bikini shot, which I'm all about the body positivity movement. I am all about Gabbie Hanna feeling great in her body, especially because we know she's had these struggles. So if she's feeling good, great. I don't have to like the girl without supporting her feeling good in her own skin. My issue was that she posted this half nude shot, which you can't see here because this is from an Instagram story where she posted a really big, like, unsavory caption over her body that didn't put out the best message.
Just a quick side note, I hadn't thought of this, but I was talking to somebody recently who pointed out that this kind of language, like telling your fans to go to your page and call you an attention whore, might just be an effective way of getting more people who come to the post later to kind of pit her fans against each other and cause some sort of like arguments in her comments to drive engagement. So as a marketing tactic, I thought that was very interesting, if that is what Gabby's doing.
The caption to the video was, week one. I'm the lowest weight since junior high. My waist is down to a number I never thought I'd see. But most importantly, I feel great, strong, healthy, and active. This was shortly after she told us she hadn't been eating. I find this especially disparaging because partially it makes me wonder what's going to happen to me for talking about this. You may or may not know about a girl who Gabby sicked her fans upon because that girl, according to Gabby, and again, one of her podcasts, I think it might have been the Enough podcast, I'm not sure, but she talked about why she sicked her fans on some random user without a platform, and she did so unapologetically. And she said it's because this person was pointing out to her that she was promoting EDs to her young fans when she was clearly in her ED. And Gabby confirmed that she was at the height of her ED. I believe she said this was while she was shooting her music video for Honestly, that was when she met Irene, and that this user pointed out that she looked sickly. I think this user said something like, oh, your ass looks flat. Or Gabby said that the user said that. But the point is that according to Gabbie Hanna, this person simply pointed out that she seems to be promoting EDs to her young fans. When, according to Gabby's own admission, it's fair to feel that way, in my opinion. So I have so much sympathy for anybody that struggles with an ED. I have my own history. It's sad. It's difficult. It is something that most people have to deal with for their entire lives, or most people who have them. But it is important to note whether or not your fans are aware that you're in it, or think that you're in it, whether you are or not. They're seeing how you do it, or at least one means by saying, I've eaten 900 calories in 5 days. I wonder how many people went on to track their calories and make sure that they were eating only 900 in 5 days because of this picture that we saw where Gabbie Hanna was her junior high weight. Posting results, talking about how great she feels at her lowest weight since junior high with this waist size that she'd never thought she'd see. it's not even diet culture at this point. It's ED culture. And based on what she said about this other person who pointed that out, I feel like I am meant to accept that she feels justified in sicking her fans on people like me, potentially, for pointing out that this is promoting EDs to your young fans. That's my thought on that. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and cut, and we will see the rest of this in my next video, where I go on to talk largely about what happened in my situation and the tweets that Gabby was liking around that time.